Welcome to the Leadership Lounge Business Book Club. Glad everybody's here. There's just three of us today. I had a lot of people texting that they were going to be out or traveling or some other thing keeping them from the meeting. Quick ground rule about the book club. The first rule of the book club is that we always talk about the book club. Leadership Lounge is brought to you by Sedaris Consulting Agency, which is founded by myself, Shannon McCoy, and Alan Edwards. The Business Book Club exists to keep us all accountable to our reading goals. And honestly, just to make sure we actually finish the books that we say we're going to read. It's a chronic problem. We meet every Thursday at noon Pacific time for 30 minutes. We try to make it short and sweet and to the point. Make sure everybody gets in and out and gets back to their business. To join us next week, head over to sedaris.com/book club and sign up to get the meeting links. That's Sedaris, CDAERIS.com/book club. You'll get an email link with the recurring calendar links, and that's your key to get into the meeting. This month, we're reading the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. And this week, particularly, we're discussing chapters 7, 8, and 9. Little fun fact this week, fun fact is the three of us are covering the globe this week. We've chopped it into thirds. I'm in Oregon. Shannon is in somewhere 4 hours south of Frankfurt, Germany, in a little town that we can't spot on a map. And Alan is in the Philippines, traveling from island to island, visiting clients and some colleagues of his. So I feel like we've got a good 360 circumference of the planet right now covered by our sweat and blood. So let's see. Chapter 7, 8, and 9. Chapter 7 and 8 are kind of clustered together. They're under the heading of dealing with someone else's emotional reactions. And chapter 9 was a brand new section called Overcoming Chronic Comparison, the first chapter in that section. So let's dive in a little bit. Cody, are you caught up with all the chapters? Are you along with us?
Pretty close. I was going to be starting chapter 8 today. I'm 2 pages away from starting chapter 8. So
good. Great. Some of us have been on the audiobook, and it goes smooth on the audiobook.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily announce always what chapter you're on. So sometimes you're just listening and realize you're either way ahead or far behind. All right, well, let's talk about chapter 7. This chapter is titled When Grown-Ups Throw Tantrums. This chapter is interesting. We try to relate all of these to how we would behave in a leadership or a business setting. And this one is interesting because I think most of us have been in an experience where we've definitely at home experienced this, especially if we have kids. Holy cow. But at work, this can also be a problem at work. There's people that definitely have tantrums in the workplace. So Shannon, what was your take on chapter 7?
I would say that, first of all, I thought I wanted to pat myself on the back because I thought, I think I do really well with when people throw tantrums and they blame or whatever decision you make, they don't like it and they respond in a way that's very judgmental. I always thought, well, I'm pretty good at keeping my cool and doing my thing and letting them do theirs. However, some of the things she mentioned about tiptoeing around others and how you can lose your power with that, or you lose a piece of yourself when you tiptoe around somebody and kind of let their maybe you say yes to something when you should say no. I would say that I'm definitely guilty of that, and that plays both personal and business life. So that's one of the things that kind of hit me. Like, why do I always have to be the one to compromise? Maybe on a personal level, I thought of some relationships, and then of course, in some ways, business dealings coming last, in a sense that maybe I'm feeling not appreciated by past employers or past colleagues. So I thought it was applicable to both personal and professional life.
Yeah. So do you think that that's are you focusing in on your ability to say no to things, or more about handling the relations of
Mhm.
all of the people?
Yeah, I think it's more saying no to things, going along with things maybe that I feel like, you know what, this is best for them or best for her, and so I don't want to make waves or what have you. But and this may apply more to the next chapter, but realizing that I do that too often, I think, where I let my main priority slip because I'm saying yes to this, and which I feel is beneficial for. I see other people ahead of myself, which I used to pat myself on the back for that, but I think professionally, I think sometimes this could really be a problem.
Yeah, definitely. Cody, what do you think? Chapter 7.
Yeah, the part that struck me the most was the silent treatment and the way that she discusses the silent treatment. Because for me, I have 3 kids. Obviously, I'm the leader in my household. I've worked in a lot of leadership positions as well, professionally. And we see the silent treatment. And in my personal life, if I've committed to the silent treatment or somebody's committed to the silent treatment, I pretty much just disconnect with them, right? Like if you're not going to put your energy into it, I'm not going to either, because we're obviously in alignment. But in the professional world, you can't really just like drop somebody, right? Without obviously economic and institutional ramifications. And so it's interesting how she puts it, because she references their childhood friend and best friends, and the way that it takes place in her personal life. But when you put it in the business context, if your, say, lead tech is throwing a temper tantrum and stops talking and requesting new assignments or looking for help on something they're struggling with, that causes major disruption within the organization, right? And again, if you're a leader and your tech does something you disagree with, and you stop that professional communication chain, that can have major ramifications, right? Especially on the bottom line, culture, the relationship between leader and subordinate, I guess, right? And so that kind of struck me. I've seen that a lot in my previous career, not so much in my professional life now, but just grown men acting like children, and it causes a lot of turmoil within like the team structure and the organization as a whole. So that was kind of the part that really struck me.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That doesn't it doesn't mean you have to let chaos reign through the office, right? It means that you've got to control what you can control, and if you can't control others, there's always consequences to that. But you really just can't, the let them idea is that you've got to let them be frustrated, let them be out of control, but you don't have to be out of control yourself in that same environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also there's, the cleanup aspect, right? You let them have their tantrum and have their little bit of chaos, but there's always something that comes after that, right? And so like our reaction to that and how you deal with whatever ramifications come next is a big key to moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that goes to how we behave after it. How we behave with the cleanup is really demonstrating how we choose to lead by example. If our team mirrors our behavior, then how we structure and behave during that cleanup process is what we expect from others.
Sure. We're the ones that set the bar, right? And so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good example.
I was gonna say too, I think this could really apply to some clients that we may have that have a tendency to maybe be more explosive in their behavior instead of really talking things out in a, just a nice, formal, calm way. I have dealt with people before that just seem to have just how she's explaining it, like that 8-year-old pop out, where they have emotional immaturity. They have the makeup of an 8-year-old's ability to control their emotions, because maybe they haven't been taught how to process them in a proactive way. And so I was just thinking about that how, basically if someone has those kind of yo-yo emotional, those emotions, they could, we don't want to really try to manage them. It's not our job to manage their reactions, especially if we're telling them the truth or maybe holding them accountable for something that just doesn't, they might react in a way that's kind of like they're pouting or something, having a little bit of tantrum. So, that's possible to happen too. So how will we handle it? Will we just let them? And how does that apply to us when a situation may happen that way? Or if we have an employee that we think they're overly sensitive.
Yeah. Or dramatic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word, dramatic, for sure.
Yeah. Good afternoon, New.
Hi. Thanks for
Hi.
your patience.
Well, of course. We're talking about chapter 7.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on chapter 7?
I think what you were just saying, Shannon, about how do you work with folks on your team or a client that, while some people may say it's like being overly emotional, I think for me, when I read that section, it goes back to, again, people not being able to regulate themselves properly or not even having the skill to do it. And again, it might be going back from how you were taught to express yourself, how you were taught to, or not taught to say things, I don't even want to say appropriately, but it's that practice, right? The experience that we have from childhood, whether things were suppressed or, if you grew up in an environment where, for me, culturally, everything that my dad said was like law, right? So there wasn't room for able to express oneself. So in the workplace, I had to actually learn how to express myself without being asked, right? Because I was never asked as a young person what my opinions were in the household. I mean, yeah, it wasn't like that authoritative, but in that same regard, in the workplace, it was like until my supervisor had said, "New, tell us what you think." I was like, oh, it's an invitation to actually express myself. And it's like, and then I got used to it and I learned that skill, right? And so when she says, let them, implode almost when they're throw their tantrum, I'm always like, wow, what does that look like? I've experienced it through watching people totally have meltdowns, adults have meltdowns and not be able to express themselves. And I try in the last, I would probably say 10 years to really think about what does that look like for me to let them do that and also let me offer some compassion, right? Which is totally hard because you want to just cuss them out and say, what are you talking about, right? Get professional all of a sudden, right? And then I was like, no, something happened within the conversation that they either felt disrespected or this, that, and the other. And so I think there's that piece when I read that section in chapter 7 was, where am I letting them do that, but also let myself offer some compassion. So I don't know. Those are some of my thoughts around the adults behaving badly or adults, having tantrums, right?
Yeah.
And some people just feel like they can do that. And I'm thinking, why are they able to express themselves? Is it really a form of expression? And, or, is something going on in their lives that they just need to be offered some compassion And I try to work from that space, but it's really hard. And I fail most of the time, but I try to go there. Anyway, that's a lot.
Well, and because I think fundamentally you don't know what's really going on. Is it about you? Is it about them? Are you jumping to conclusions? Are you feeding it? Is it they having a bad day? You don't know sometimes.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I'd also like to point out a distinction that she made, kind of like the way she was growing up in her personal life, and then the way that she had to assimilate into the professional life. We don't ever know 100% which persona we are interacting with when it becomes an emotional situation. Because I know that I hold myself in a professional environment different than I am at home, right? And I think most people are that way. But when emotions take over and start driving that logic, it's really hard to tell, like, which one am I dealing with? Am I dealing with the professional, or am I dealing with the personal trauma? Right? Like, and again, like you said, you come from an environment where your personal may have been suppressed in some fashion, right? And then so when you get into the professional world, you have to learn your professional persona in real time, and that can be a difficult thing to navigate, especially with younger people. I worked a lot with kids right out of high school, in a dangerous environment, and it was already always hard to tell who you're actually interacting with on that level.
Yeah. Good point. All right. Chapter 8 takes us on the same theme, but focuses us a little bit less on tantrums and more about managing emotions as they relate. I don't know. This is my take on it. Managing emotions as they relate to huge life decisions. This was the one that started with the story about the couple that was getting engaged, but she wanted to exit she did not want to get married, and all of the difficult decision it was to have that conversation about, I don't want to get married, and then living with the consequences of that, even though she had the right to not get married. The chapter also then dives into jealousy, which is interesting. Lots to talk about on jealousy. So, Shannon, what were your feelings about chapter 8?
Well, I thought this was applicable to to me and my life for sure, because I consider myself, I think for a guy, I'm overly sensitive probably towards a lot of things, and so what that means to me is, I think it's great to be empathetic, but I think I sometimes will think about making a decision based on how other people feel, how they will react, the impact on their life versus my own. And that's why I think this chapter, why it's themed, the right decision often feels wrong, because it feels wrong in the way it's going to land. And that illustration of the wedding is definitely an example of that. I might be the guy that was a little bit more inclined to just go through with thinking about how many people are supposed to show up out of town and how many people we told that
It's much easier
each other
later than to send them all home.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, so it did mention, and this I wanted to apply to myself, and personally and professionally, that the most courageous and honorable thing to do is the right thing, and that's the right thing for me. I mean, they manage what's right for them. I have to manage what's right for me. And even though the more approved or most wanted decision is completely different. So I also thought it was interesting that it says emotions will come at you, so just be prepared. Use this let them theory to look at emotions as being waves that will come, and you basically need to learn how to surf them instead of being toppled by them. Let people judge you, let them react or criticize you, whatever, but give yourself permission to make the best decision for yourself. That's what I got out of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about you? What was your take on chapter 8?
I had a little hard time with her example of the wedding situation, in part because I think that's kind of normal, the nerves of a wedding, and you think you're, oh, what? So I didn't love that example. I understood where she was going, like, hey, you have to make that decision for yourself. In the workplace, I think if I'm applying it to what that looks like on a team, I think there's often times where, within whether I'm leading a team and I'm saying, well, I'm not sure, I'm trying to go with, I really try not to go with the emotional knee-jerk response of like, yeah, that doesn't sound like what we should be doing for a lot of various reasons. I really try to analyze things and take into consideration what the team is offering as recommendations. So I think there's a little more to it than the let them theory here. I think that part of it is let me take in all the aspects of what's really happening, try to weed out the emotional part of it, because if you have a team that's empowered, they're going to offer a lot of reasons why, and then kind of whittle it down to, this is my thoughts on it, and then make the decision. So
yeah, I think in that way it's very similar to the last chapter, which was basically, manage your own emotions and other people manage their own emotions, and everybody moves along.
Yeah.
I had a hard time differentiating this chapter from the last one. I think the storyline for me melded, it felt like it could have been one big chapter, which was summarized by stuff's going to happen, emotions are going to come out, and take care of yourself. I'm not entirely sure I agree with all of the strategies, but that's why we're reading it.
That's right.
Cody, what was your thoughts on chapter 8? Oh, you haven't gotten to chapter 8 yet, have you?
No, I haven't gotten there yet, but I do have some thoughts on the concept. And like New said, I think in a team environment, I've always been very much team first, where I put myself last. That's something that I was ingrained when I was little. And so for me, the let them theory kind of gets a little bit jumbled in that aspect, because it's like, yeah, I should be doing what's best for my own personal, like self-preservation, right? But then at the same time, in that team first mentality, it's like that self-preservation becomes 10 people in scope instead of one person in scope, right? And so then, it comes back to like how these two chapters could meld together, because if you let one person have their temper tantrum on the team, are you, if you're not facilitating that in a correct manner, A, you're not looking out for yourself, but B, you're not looking out for the team in an effective manner, right? And so, again, how we apply this and where, there's a lot of caveats with that, I think. And that's just kind of going off, your guys' takes and what I've read so far, as far as chapter 7. I think there's some distinctions for me where it's less valuable in that, because again, team before self, and at that point it's no longer self-preservation as it is team preservation, right? So the scope definitely enlarges there.
Yeah. So 7 and 8 were kind of clustered together, and chapter 9 starts into a new section, which I can't remember what section was called. Oh yeah, overcoming chronic comparison. This one is, I just happened to have a podcast I was listening to the other day that had a segment about chronic comparison as it related to teens on Instagram and the fashion, fashion and all of the things that wrap around. What I'm just going to say is the younger generation today and all of the issues that surround their self-image and how they behave on social media and the things that they take away from it. So, however, this one was about life isn't fair. Focusing on how unfair life seems to be when we compare ourselves to others, which can drain our emotions and our motivation and keep us from moving forward on our tasks. I felt this, like I said, that this one is really fairly relevant, especially when it's applied to teens and the youth of today. But I also felt like this was, again, part and parcel with the last couple chapters, which was let them do their thing and you focus on your thing. Be it emotional or images or fairness. We can't all have everything that everybody else has if we're wanting, and we can't all be what everybody else is. We just have to live our own life. So I felt like this one again was didn't have a whole lot of depth and new content, just a little bit different spin on it. So,
yeah.
What do you think, Shannon?
I feel similarly that it wasn't like anything just have any kind of wow factor with me of something that I didn't know. However, going back to thinking about how I could apply it to business, I think maybe having, and maybe comparisons with your teammates, your colleagues, your people that you associate with that are super talented, and you're just impressed with. Well, that's great that you're impressed with them, but this upward and downward comparison I thought was kind of important, because one, like I say, if we're entrepreneurs, we really don't want to waste our time, energy, or bandwidth on things like comparing ourselves with people, right? So I think that's what it's talking about, this upward comparison. However, downward comparison, I think, is kind of, I apply it to when I'm doing like prayerful gratitude in the morning. I'm like thankful for all these different things. And I think I do this as a part of my routine, in a sense that I do compare myself to, what's considered a third world country or what have you. The things that I have and the opportunities I have. I don't just think about how many people have it over on me or are doing so much better.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Like when she talked about the fact that we have clean running water, these are things that are in our face when we travel. And I often think of people who haven't had the opportunity to travel globally. They live in a little bubble. They don't know what struggle really looks like. Struggle isn't getting that, the latest Xbox game. That's not really a struggle. There are things out there that are true struggles, and it puts it in perspective, I think. So that's a perfect way to summarize that, Shannon. It's like we have gratitude for it, and if we maintain that, that should be the way we look at things instead of a comparative. So I agree with you. New, what about you? What do you think?
Oh, I think we're at time, so I don't want to take up any airspace. My own fault for coming late.
Okay, that's okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful comments today. That's it for today's Leadership Lounge. Next week, same time, same place, Thursday at noon Pacific. Bring your book, bring your thoughts, and we'll see everybody there. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.